Did you know there are 15 different ways to start a new note in Apple Notes, including this one, the back tap, and also this one, the Roundel. So in this video, I'm going to show you all the different ways you can start a new note in Apple Notes. There is no need to apply all of them, of course, but it's important to know them so that you can pick the ones that work for you and that suits your workflows. Let's get started. So these are all the ways to create a new note in Apple Notes. And as you can see, it's 15 of them, moving from the simplest to the most complicated ones. I've divided them across 3 groups. Things you can do inside of the app, inside of Apple Notes, things you can do across the system, and things you can do using external trigger points, the majority of which will be related to shortcuts. I'm going to cover all of them in this video, starting from the most basic one, which is the standard Create a New Note button. This is available across Mac, iPhone, and iPad, and it's this little button here, which, by the way, on the Mac, you can use the shortcut Command N, which is much quicker. And this is probably the most intuitive way of creating a new note. So let me give you just a few pointers. The first one is that the new note is going to be created inside of the folder you are in. So in this case, I'm inside this folder, and the new note is here. The second thing is, in the majority of cases, the new note will be created potentially inside of the bigger notes folder, which means that if you create a new note, type something in, and then you move to another note, it's going to be difficult to spot that new note again, or it may be difficult to spot that new note again. So it may pay to create a smart folder that pulls all the notes created today. So if I click on this one, look at what happens. It's pulling 3 notes that I've created today, but not the one that I've just created. Why is that? That is because until you put something in the new note, that note doesn't really exist. So if I go back to New Perspective and create a new note, and now I type something in here, then at this point, the smart folder is going to pull this note as well, which is here. Okay, so that's basic. That is probably the most basic feature that you've got in Apple Notes. Now, let's continue across this matrix here, and let's move to the second thing, which is a more advanced feature. When you are inside of a note, like in this case, in this one, you can create new notes by simply linking to them. So let's say, for example, I want to create a new note on the fly while I'm still writing this one. So maybe I've had a new idea or something that I want to create later on based on the content of this note. I can simply tap the 2 greater than signs shortcut, like in this case. And as you can see, Apple Notes is giving me a list of potential notes, the most recent notes that I may want to link to. However, if I start typing a completely new name, something which is not already on the system, such as good morning, as you can see, Apple Notes is suggesting to create a new note called good morning. And if I go down and I hit return, this new note has been created, and I can get back to it later on. I can continue typing my note here, and then when I'm done, I can move to the new note, which has been created. As you can see, it's here, and I can type whatever I want in this one. So this is another way to create a new note on the fly. And it's actually very useful when you are following a specific train of thought and you think of something else that may be useful later on. You want to create that note and then park it there, ready for you to jump on later on. Next one is the app icon, which on iPads and iPhones has got some special powers. So if I take my iPad here and I tap and hold on the icon, a little menu will appear. And this menu there at the bottom will give me the possibility to create a new note. Actually, it's giving me the possibility to create special kind of notes. One for a scanned document, one for a photo, one for a checklist, and then a generic new note. And if I choose, for example, the scanned document option, it will immediately fire up the camera so I can scan something into that note. For example, I can click here, a new note is being created, and now this is ready for me to scan. Done. And I can then save the note. Now, talking about the iPad, one of the best features, which are only available on the iPad if you have a pencil, is the ability to tap and wake Apple Notes. And this is only available in Apple Notes. No other note-taking app can use this feature because it's a hardware feature. So if I take my Apple Pencil and I tap on my iPad, a new note will be created for me, and I can start writing on this note. Now, the beauty of it is that you can then choose what the behavior of this note will be for you. So, for example, if you switch it off and then you tap again, I've got my iPad set to continue with the same note. And the way I use this, and it's the best use case scenario for me, is that I can use it as a daily log. So I start the day with a fresh note, and then I keep writing during the day on several occasions, and this is set to give me always the same note every time I tap on the screen with my pencil so I can keep writing. And at the end of the day, it will reset, and tomorrow it will give me a fresh note. So this is really something that can function perfectly as a daily log of the stuff that I do. So this tap to wake function can be customized in several ways. I'm going to show you how I have it customized, but then you can choose your own based on your own workflow. Let me scroll down to Apple Notes, which is here. And then towards the bottom where it says access notes from lock screen. It is set to on in my case. And this is the way I've got it configured. It always resumes from the last note. So every time I tap on the screen, it brings me back to my sort of daily page. When it resumes, when it picks up the last note, I want to continue on the note that I created from the lock screen, not the last note that I viewed in Apple Notes. And also, as you can see here, there is the ability to create a new note every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, or whatever you want, or maybe even never. In my case, I set it to after today. So this is the way this tap to wake feature will work as a daily log. I start in the morning with a fresh note. I start typing whatever relates to this particular day, and then tomorrow I will receive a new fresh note. Now, you can even set it to never. You can set it to whatever time frame you want. Just bear in mind there is a privacy concern. If you choose to create a new note after a longer time frame, for example an hour, or maybe at the end of the day, maybe even never, you should be conscious of the fact that if someone can grab your pencil and tap on the screen, they will see the content of your note. There is no Face ID, no other barrier to that. So make sure that you are aware of this and you balance your need for privacy with your need for speed in your own workflow. Next in line, Quick Notes. A great addition in iOS 17, Quick Notes adds some special powers to standard notes. The first one would be the ability to link these notes to specific types of content, for example, a web page or a book, so that not only you can take notes related to that page, but every time you revisit the same page or open the same book, this quick note will be resurfaced automatically for you so you can continue writing. And the second is that across the system, on the phone, Mac, or iPad, there are triggers that will make it very easy and convenient to create a new quick note. Keyboard combinations, gestures, and so on. Actually, there are so many of these triggers that I hope I'm going to remember all of them in this little demonstration. So let's start from the Mac. On the Mac, I can create a new quick note by using the combination globe or function and then Q. So globe Q will create a new quick note for me. And I can start typing whatever I want in this note, and then I can close it. And the next time I press function Q, it's going to create a new quick note for me. There is the possibility to change this behavior, which is what I do, because again, I use the quick note as a daily log. So instead of creating a new note every time I tap on function Q, I set it in the preferences to resume to the last note. So the way I do it is this. You go into your notes, settings, and then you set this one, always resume to last quick note. So if I click on this one and close this little window, so let's say this one is my daily log, I can then close it. And the next time I press function Q, it's going to bring me back to my daily log and I can continue writing stuff. Now, at the end of the day, it's not going to create a new note like the tap to wake. So at the end of the day, if I want to create a new note for tomorrow, for example, I need to create it manually. And the way I do it is that with the quick note open, like in this case, I hit Command N. This will create a new quick note. And I write something, maybe it's tomorrow's log. Now I can close this window, I can close the previous window, and now when I invoke the quick notes again using function Q, it's going to give me the latest, the last note that I've created. So this is really convenient. However, let me give you a more practical example of how a quick note could be used to take notes on a specific web page. Let's say I'm investigating ISO dates. I'm browsing this web page, which is the entire specification, and as you can see, it's a very long page. There is a lot here to absorb. Maybe I'm just interested in one thing, which is how to encode the week number of a specific date. And the specification is down here. Lowercase w gives me the week of the year, uppercase W gives me the week of the month. Now, I could do a few things here. First of all, there is this little icon here that allows me to create a link to whatever I'm visiting. And if I click on it, as you can see, it gives me this page. And I can add this link. So this is acting as a bookmark in a way. And there are more interesting uses for this. But I would say this little icon is useful because if you are taking a quick note and you see this icon light up, you can click on it and see what other content you can take notes on. For example, if you had a book open, this little thing will show you the link to that specific book. Anyway, going back to my example, I was interested in this bit, how to encode the week number. And this is at the very bottom of the page. And of course, I want to take a note of this. So there are a couple of ways I can go about it. First of all, I can take a quick note. I could say that uppercase W is the week of the month, and lowercase w is the week of the year. Or I can also add a reference to this. So if I highlight this text and I right-click, one of the options is this one, Add to Quick Note. And look at what happens. When I click to add to the quick note, this little quote with the text I've selected appears. And the beauty of it is that if let's say, if I go to a different part of this page, or even if I close this page completely, and then I double click on this link, the page will be open for me, and look at what happened. There is some text highlighted, which is exactly the stuff that I've selected earlier on. So it's a bookmark with a deep link to the piece of text that I was interested in. And then look at what happens if a few days down the line, I open again that Unicode page. Look at what happens here at this corner. There is something sticking out, and that is that quick note. So if I go there with my mouse and click on it, it will be opened because it has recognized that there is a note attached to this specific page. And if I click on any of the elements here, it will bring me to the exact point where this text was selected. So this one, as you can see, it's up here. It's even highlighting in yellow the text that I did select. And by the way, the same level of sync happens across devices. If I open the same page on this iPad, which is this one, as you can see, there is an icon there at the bottom indicating there is a quick note attached to this page. And if I click on it, it will open up and it will be exactly the same notes that I was working on earlier on. And if I double click on the same link, it will bring me to the very same point on the same page. So this is extremely helpful, and the same behavior will happen in exactly the same way on the iPhone. So you can take more notes here that you will then display on the Mac and then display on the iPhone and so on. So it's a really well synced system that works extremely well, and that's why Quick Notes are so powerful. Now, on the subject of Quick Notes, given that I've already opened one on the iPad, I can show you another few tricks. The first one is that if I close this note, if I slide up from the bottom right corner, I will open the last quick note. In this case, is the note related to this web page, but I can then swipe left and right to move to previous quick notes. So I can really go through my entire catalog of quick notes using this system. The other thing to notice is that I can move the window by grabbing it on the top bar across the page, so it's not in the way, and it will stay on top, so I can keep working on this web page or maybe on other web pages and taking notes at the same time. I can even make the window slightly bigger, so I've got more real estate to write by doing this, by enlarging with my fingers, and it's now this big. And when I'm done with it, I can simply click on done and it will disappear again. This thing can also be done with the finger, so I can slide in from the bottom right corner, just as I did with my pencil. And this is something that you will have to set up in the settings. So I'm going to show you in a second how to define this. And the behavior of what happens when you drag from the bottom right or bottom left corner can be defined in the settings. So if you go to Settings, Apps, Notes, and then you go down to Corner Gestures, as you can see, you can first of all enable your fingers to do the work of the pencil when you swipe, which I recommend you do, and then you can define the behavior of the left corner swipe, which in my case is set to take the screenshot, and the right corner swipe, which is to invoke the quick note. You can click on them and swap them or switch them off. And the quick note, there is another setting which is interesting, which is this one, resume the last quick note. In my case, I've got it switched on, so every time I invoke the quick note is always the same, the last note. And if I want to create a new one, I click on the Create New button. However, you may want to use a different system whereby every time you swipe up and you create a quick note, it will give you a new fresh note. Another situation where I use quick notes very often is when I'm reading books. With Apple Books, you can attach notes to a specific book that will be reopened every time you reopen that book, which is perfect for taking notes on a very long research paper, for example. And I'm going to show you on the phone how that works. If I open my books, I'm just going to open a random book at this point. But as you can see, there is already a quick note that is popping up because while I was preparing this video, I took a random note on this book. And that quick note is available there. So if I slide in, you can see the little icon there on the right. And if I tap on it, it will be expanded into the entire quick note. And if I open the same book on the iPad, you will see that at the bottom corner, there is already my quick note ready for me. And if I click on it, it will be open and I can continue typing or writing or attaching screenshots, selecting text. Next is the ability to create a new note using the control center. Now, control center is this one. You drag down from the top right corner. There are lots of icons in your control center. Some of them may be, if you choose so, related to Apple Notes. In my case, I've got this one that creates a new quick note, and this one that creates a new note. And by the way, if I tap on this and long press, it's going to give me some additional options which are very similar to the ones we discussed in the app icon section. Now, the question is, how do you add these icons? Well, it's really easy. You long press until the icons change shape, and then you tap on Add a Control at the bottom, and then you scroll down to the icons that relate to Apple Notes, and you tap on the ones that you want to add. I've already added quick notes and standard notes, so there is nothing else for me to do here, but this is the way to do it. Personally, I don't really use this method very often because I've got others that are quicker and fit my workflow much better. However, as usual, it's just a case of discovering what is possible and then for you to decide whether they suit your own workflow. The next one I'm going to mention is the share menu. Pretty much wherever you are in the system, you have the possibility to select some text or maybe tap and hold on an image and display some additional features, including the possibility to share that selection. So for example, if I am on this web page and I select this text and then I tap to reveal the options, I've got the share button here. Now, the share button gives me a series of options. In this case, we're interested in this Notes app. So I'm going to tap on Apple Notes and I'm going to save to a new note. And if I save and then I go to Apple Notes, the text that I had selected is on this note. The next way to create a new note is probably the one that I use the least, and it is by using Siri. I find that Siri almost never understands what I'm saying. There are lots of technical problems and glitches. So I was trying to record these and I tried it several times and there were always some problems that couldn't let him complete the task. However, if you use Siri, one way of creating a new note will be to invoke Siri in whichever way you are set up to do so. So by saying, hey Siri, or just Siri, depending on your phone, or like in my case, by tapping and holding on the side button until the icon appears. Create a new note for me, saying that this channel is really cool. And now it's thinking about it, and it will do this for ages. And that's why I never use Siri, it's just too slow. I think we can probably move on. This is still thinking about it, and now it's saying, sorry, something went wrong, please try again in a moment. Except it's already half an hour that I've been trying to do this, and it never works. So the next in line in the system category was going to be the lock screen button. However, that relies on shortcuts. So we're going to park this for a second and move on to the next section. The next section starts with math notes and call recordings. These are two ways to create a new note. Let me show you the first one, math notes. If I open the calculator app on the iPad with its big buttons, I can click on this button down here and choose math notes. This will fire up a new note, and if I type on it, I can say 3 + 9 equals, it's going to define that this equals 12, and this is already a new note. If I go back to Apple Notes at that point, you will see that there is in the folders a new category there called Math Notes. And if I click on it, I will have all these calculations, including this one that I just jotted down, and I can continue updating it. The one related to call recordings I cannot show you because call recordings are not available in my region. However, as you can see in this screenshot, this is an easy way to start a new note. Basically, when you are in a phone call, if you are in one of the selected regions, which are the States, United Kingdom, and a few additional ones, you will see a little symbol on the top left corner, which is like a waveform. And if you click on it, a call recording will actually start. Well, actually, before starting, there will be a message played so that the other person knows that the call will be recorded, which is fair enough. And then this recording will basically be treated as an audio recording, but it will have its own category in Apple Notes, just as we have Math Notes and Quick Notes. There will be another one for recordings. So this is everything that relates to Math Notes and call recordings. To be honest, I don't imagine many people using these two features too often. The next section, though, is way more interesting because that relates to shortcuts. And shortcuts, if you don't know them, are basically little programs, little automations that you can create on your iPhone or iPad or Mac that can do something for you, dealing with the existing apps. And one of the things that they can do for you is to create a new note. And once you've got a shortcut like that, you can then use it across other places in your on your devices to start a new note. So let's define first how you can create a shortcut. And this is really easy. I'm going to demonstrate it on the iPad. So the first step is to create a shortcut that does only one thing. It creates a new note. So open the Shortcuts app in any device, iPad or Mac, wherever. Tap on the plus button, and then you add a single action. You can search for actions here, look for create, go down to where it says create note, which is here, and drag it to your workflow. Now, this is the only thing that this shortcut will do for you. It will create a note with some content in some folder. Now, folder is the only one you want to choose. Choose the folder that you prefer, where you want for these things to be saved. It can be any folder you want. Let's say this one. And leave the content bits free, because you're going to define the content later on. Now, you can maybe rename this thing. Create note is a good name. I think I'm going to leave it. You can choose an icon. Maybe I'm going to use this one, using this little arrow and make it green. Whatever. Choose whatever you want. This is not important. It's just a way to remember later on where to find the shortcut. And then this is it. If you play this shortcut, it's going to ask you what kind of content you want to include in this new note. And when you click on Done, it's going to save it in the folder you've selected. Now that the shortcut is ready, it's just a matter of triggering it, launching it somehow. And the thing that I demonstrated at the beginning, where I double tapped on the back of the phone to launch this capture window that will create a new note, is exactly what we're talking about. The double tap launches the shortcut, and then the shortcut captures whatever you want to save and stores it in a new note. So let me show you how to set up the double tap, and then we can move on to the other possibilities. So to set up the double tap, you do this. You go into your settings, accessibility, touch, and then you scroll to the bottom where it says back tap. You click on it, and you can see that you can trigger a couple of actions with 2 or maybe even 3 back taps. In my case, the double tap is already attached to the shortcut that creates a new note. But if you've never done it, or if you want to change it, you basically tap on it, and then you scroll to the bottom until you find the shortcut we've just created. You tap on it, and from now on, every time you double tap on your phone, that shortcut is going to be launched and a new note will be created for you. So the same thing applies to all the other items we have on that list. For example, the home screen widget, I don't know if you can see it, but down there on the right, I've got a launcher for my shortcut instead of having the usual camera button. I've customized it to launch a shortcut. The way to do it is that you long press on this screen until the option to customize comes up. You click customize, you choose the screen that you want to customize, and then you can choose how to customize the buttons down there. So this one here, I could click on the minus to remove it, and now it's empty, and then I can click on it and choose a new shortcut. And I can scroll down until I find shortcuts. I click on shortcuts, and then I can choose the shortcut that I want to launch, which is, guess what? The one that we just created that creates a new note. So in my case, it's this one. Let me find it. I'm gonna search for it because I think it's probably best. Create a new note. And there I have it. So it's now ready for me to be used. I'm going to click on done and choose to use this screen. This is going to be available for me. The roundel is that little thing that appears, in my case, down there. And if I tap on it, it's basically a launcher for shortcuts. And I have one shortcut here with just an icon that creates a new note for me. This is exactly a launcher for the shortcuts that we created earlier on. Now, I'm not going to create anything. I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to show you how to set up your roundel. So setting up the roundel is really easy. You go into your settings. This is one of those accessibility features, as usual, that are useful to everybody. You go to accessibility, touch, and then assistive touch. You switch it on at the top if it's not switched on already, and then you click on Customize Top Level Menu. This will give you a list of launchers. I think at the beginning it's probably 4 or 6, I can't remember. I've got 8, which is the maximum number, and you can attach every single one of these buttons to a shortcut or any other action, for example, the torch. So if I click on my roundel at this point, you will see that these 8 launchers exactly match the ones that I've got here. And if you tap on any one of them, you can choose what sort of action that launcher performs, from system actions to, at the bottom, your shortcuts. Then you look for the one that we just created. In my case, I've got this one, which is, uses just a simple icon just for, because I didn't have too much space. And I click on done. And from that moment, that icon is going to be available there. And if I click on it, it's going to launch the action and create a new note for me. This is extremely useful, and you can use the roundel. I actually invite you to watch the video on this channel about the roundel because you can use it for lots of things. Anyway, we're focused on creating new notes. So let's move on to the next one, which is the lock screen button. Lock screen button or lock screen widgets are basically the same thing. The button is down there where you normally have the camera icon. The widget is up here. But they do exactly the same thing. It's basically a way to launch a shortcut. So I can customize it by tapping on it until it moves. I'm going to customize this, the lock screen. And where it says add widget, I can simply tap to add a widget. And there are lots of options between, widgets, but we're going to go for the shortcuts widget. And I can tap or simply drag this thing to add it to the widgets. And then if I tap on it, it will let me choose what shortcut I want to use. And I can scroll down to whatever shortcut I need, which is the one that creates the note, right? So you look for it and you tap on it to use it. And from this moment on, I can close everything. And now when I tap on it, it will launch this shortcut that tries to capture a new note.